From service to strength, from questions to choice, guidance you trust, her vet voice.
Hello, 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 Her Vet Voice family. How are you? And welcome to my channel. Tonight we are talking about something that every veteran, when filling out a claim, needs to understand. And that is the 3 elements required for service connection. A lot of veterans file claims without realizing that the VA is legally required to see the 3 specific things in the evidence before they can grant the service connection. And if one of the 3 elements are missing, your claim can be likely denied. So tonight we are going to break down the 3 elements, talk about how veterans can strengthen their claims. And if you are filing your disability claim, you need to stay here so you can get the information you need. After that, we will have a Q&A, and then we will just go about our way. So we have FF and Natural here with us tonight. Let's get into it. Hello, ladies. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
All
Good.
right, everybody. Natural is here. FF is here. Natural, do you want me to bring up the PowerPoint so we can get started and you can get in? Hey, Spencer. All right. Natural, you ready?
FF, do you mind doing this? Because I have some little distractions right now, and they'll be leaving in a minute. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
FF, can you see the screen to go over this, or you want me to read as you go?
I don't mind.
Okay. All right. So the 3 elements for service connection are the 3 pillars of a successful disability claim. Navigating your service connection for veterans, every successful claim must have these 3 components. If one is missing, the claim can be denied. So let's get into element 1, which is the current medical diagnosis. You must have a current diagnosis, a diagnosed disability. The diagnosis must be from a licensed medical professional. It must be a formal diagnosis rather than just a symptom. The conditions must be chronic and currently impacting your life. Evidence examples are VA medical records, private physician reports, and diagnostics, imaging, MRI, X-ray, CT scans, etc. So FS, let's talk a little bit about element 1, the diagnosis.
Okay. Yes. And I don't want you all to overthink this, right? This is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be a diagnosis from your doctor, not what you feel like it might be. It's going to be what the professional tells you it is. It's going to be what the doctor says it is, the person who you went to see when whatever was bothering you and you couldn't take it anymore, when you left your home or when you left from work and you explained to them what your symptoms were, when whatever was nagging you or whatever that pain was, and the doctor said, let's check it out, let's get an x-ray, let's review your medical history, let's go get a scan. That's what the diagnosis is going to be, because you're going to explain to the professional what your symptoms were. And after they review your history, the professional is going to tell you what the diagnosis is. And then once they render the diagnosis, then you'll come back and you'll tell us what your diagnosis is. Now, sometimes, let's say if you are in service, right? And you're explaining what you're feeling. Now you can have signs and symptoms of what you're going through. And if you're in service, you're going to explain that same thing to the person in service of what you're feeling. And they'll, again, render the diagnosis, but you'll explain what you're feeling but under no circumstance, unless you are a medical professional, will you render the diagnosis yourself, because you aren't competent to do that unless you're the medical professional. But you do know what you're feeling.
Okay. That was really good, FF.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a little
The-
bit.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to touch on the chronicity portion,
There we go.
because
Okay.
I know sometimes we tough it out, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But for certain conditions, migraines, your back, you know, those little pesky pains that we have and we tend to suck it up. We want to mention that, right? We want to complain about it, because later we're going to need to show chronicity, your headaches, your back pain, your foot pain, whatever is bothering you, you need to have chronicity of those things. And in order to do that, it can't be acute. And unfortunately, the VA will see it as acute if you don't complain about it more than, 4 or 5 times. Because later down the road, when you say, I injured my back, and it might be a complaint of it in the record.
Mhm.
Yeah, you fell, but that's all that they have. And then when you get out 5 years later, it's this big pain from it, but they didn't hear anything about it. So the chronicity isn't established. And it's like, yeah, I have an event in service, but that's all they have. There's no chronicity established because you didn't say anything else about it. And then when you got out, you didn't see anybody. So you need to make sure that you continue the care. There needs to be chronicity established. It can't just be, that time you complained and then maybe you got, I don't know, some Tylenol for it. Chronicity, you need to continue to get care even after you get out, because it hurts, it's bothering you. And then if it's not, that's okay too. But if we're gonna file a claim for it, it probably is hurting you. So whatever it is, chronicity is important because it shows that it is still bothering you.
You touched right on the nail that I wanted you to expand on when we talk about chronicity of care. I see so many veterans that get out 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and they decided that when they got out, they're not going to go to the doctor, but then they pick up after 10 years of being out, and then they're missing a whole 10 years, but they pick up 10 years later, and they miss the chronicity of fear in that 10-year span. So let's talk about, for instance, FF, if I got out with, let's say, asthma. So my asthma hasn't bothered me for 5 years, and then all of a sudden, I move to a different state, my allergies become really bad, then my asthma start flaring up. And I haven't been in those 5 years, but 5 years later down the road, it's terrible. What do I do?
Okay, so what's probably going to happen, and again, everyone is different, but what is probably going to happen is it's going to be the area that you're in. So it's going to look like it's just an allergy. It's going to be acute.
Okay.
Now, it could be a flare up, and not for all, but for a lot of people, you have like seasonal allergies. And they tend to get aggravated just depending on where you are in the world. And we manage those, with just regular allergy medication. And sometimes they get more aggravated just depending on where you are. And if you're in service, that can look worse. And if you document it properly, that's great. If you don't, it can look acute.
Okay.
And if it looks acute, then that's how it's going to be treated. And if you get out and the record just shows that it's acute, then when you claim it, that's how it'll continue to look. If the condition is looked at as chronic, where it's more than just, a seasonal flare-up, maybe you had headaches with it, maybe, some additional congestion, things like that, and you took certain medications to manage it, your sinuses were acting up from it, and it was more than just a seasonal allergy type deal, and that's reflected, then that's how to be treated. Now, if it is just, seasonal allergies, that's okay too. If nothing's wrong, then that's fine. But if there is something more, make sure the record accurately reflects that. So when you get out and you still have this condition, no matter where you live, the record reflects that, because you're still going to have it.
Yes.
You're going to have those allergies, those headaches, that congestion. And if you can get compensated for it, then by all means, go ahead and file the claim, because it's in your record. And it'll be chronic, because those are one of the things that you can't help. You're going to have that congestion when you hold your head down. Your nose is going to run. You're going to get headaches, and you're going to have to take medicine for it. Like that's something you're going to have to see someone about. So you can't really, that's going to have to be chronic. Like you can't get away from that one.
Okay.
So don't try to self-treat that. Go see somebody.
Okay.
And that's one of the more easier ones, I would say, if you don't try to self-treat it. And that will follow you, because it's going to continue to happen.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Natural?
Yes.
Any input there on chronicity here, or are we moving along?
We can move along. I think she touched all the key
Amazing.
points.
Okay, let's go to element 2. Element 2 is the in-service event or injury. It can be a specific injury, i.e. a fall, disease contracted, or exposure to environmental hazards, exception, the presumptive conditions, like those related to Agent Orange or the PACT Act. They do not require proof of a specific event if in service in a specific location is proven. Evidence examples are service treatment records, incident report, unit duty logs, or buddy statements from fellow service members. Element 2. You want to start with the PACT Act, or you want to start with in-service records?
We can start with the in-service records,
Okay.
because PACT is probably like one
Yes.
of the last things that we look at.
Okay.
So with element 2, we're looking for something that occurred in service, like i.e., like it said, a fall. You were on a run and you tweaked your knee. You were loading something onto a truck and you pulled a muscle in your back. Those are just some of the examples. There are many, but we look for a direct service connection first out of everything. If we don't have an in-service event, if we don't have an injury, then we would look for what we call the presumptive. Did you go to Southwest Asia, which is Iraq, Afghanistan, all that little cluster over there that's under Southwest Asia? Then we would look at that, and then then we would venture off into some terror. If you were exposed to toxic exposure. Now, some people, say burn pits fall under terror. I feel like burn pits fall under Gulf War presumptives also. But you have the AO exposure, you have the Gulf War with the burn pits, the oil, the people that were like drenched in the oil from the first one, from the sand over there to the food you may eating over there to the, because some people got dysentery real bad when they were over there. So we look at all of that. If we have one of those, then chances are you will get sent for an exam, but you have to have a in-service event or injury. And sometimes it's not always documented within the STRs. It can also be found sometimes in your military personnel records. If we can go into your personnel records and we see a evaluation, and it could cover, soldier member was on a convoy, stepped out to change a tire, got injured by IED, got injured by a truck, getting hit by a truck, slipped and fell off the side of the truck and was able to still complete the mission. So those are things that we can use as an example for an in-service event to be able to service connect some or send for exams for conditions. Okay. Anything, FF?
No, that's it.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into the presumptive conditions.
Okay. So anything presumptive under the Gulf War, Agent Orange, some examples like for Agent Orange would be like hypertension, diabetes, peripheral neuropathy. I'm missing some more.
It's a lot of them.
It's a lot of them under that, but that's just like some of them know off of my top of my head. Now for Gulf War, there's IBS, cardiovascular signs and symptoms, respiratory, it's some skin conditions, neurological conditions. But that is, if we can't find any other way to send for an examination or give you an in-service event, then we will go to the presumptives. Not everything is considered a presumptive. So if we can't cover it under a presumptive, then we will go to terror. And terror is a toxic exposure. It's like if you were exposed to, like, based on your military occupational specialty, which is MOS. I don't know what the other branches call them. I just call everybody's MOS because that's what I know. We will look at type of exposures that you were exposed to with that particular MOS, like JP8, JP4, petroleum, diesel fuel, jet fuel, just any type of toxic exposure associated with that particular job, even asbestos, different things like you were, so that if you were down in a motor pool, you could have been exposed to any type of solvents or chemicals they use to clean in the motor pool, things of that nature. So that's when we go over into that arena. Everything, sometimes even when the veterans put that on the 526, it's not something that we automatically go to. We will still go review your service treatment records to determine if there could be a direct service connection prior to us jumping to the terror. Again, if we don't find anything on a direct service connection, we then begin to look at the presumptives and terror. Sometimes we cannot concede terror based on your MOS or what you've done or exposures that you have done within service.
And if you guys, we try to look through everything like Natural just stated, but if maybe you had like a special mission or something that you were on and we missed it or we don't have it of the record and you have proof that you did something that was especially hazardous and you were exposed to something, you can submit that evidence and if we can verify it, and we can update your Terra to that exposure.
Right, because some people had special missions like Navy SEALs, and those type of people that some of their information is redacted. So sometimes when we get their personnel records, they went on special op missions, and some of that is not available because it was redacted out. Now, some veterans do have that information, and we will develop to them for that, because sometimes, like I said, inside the medical records, or not the medical records, the personnel records, that information is redacted out where you were because it was a special mission. If that is the case, then if we find that you were on one of those special assignments, or one of those teams like Navy SEALs or Green Beret or whatever, then we will develop to you for that information. And if you have it, you can submit it to us, or do a lay statement explaining to us what you did, where you were, and what you were exposed to.
So I have a question here when it comes to the Terra, because I get a lot of people that ask me about the whole Terra letter. And I know before, when Terra first came out, the toxic exposure letter would be in like e-benefits, and you would have been able to see like some type of Terra documentation. Why are those letters not available anymore? And how can veterans find out more if they are in the Terra category?
Honestly, I didn't know that they were that you guys could see them. We do what we call a terror memorandum,
Mhm.
and it's uploaded into the veterans file, and that's how we concede the toxic exposures. And if, let me say, like Agent Orange, there's a question on there about it, and then we will check that, herbicide exposure was conceded, and then we'll show that the veteran was in RVN, which is Republic of Vietnam, and we'll put the time frame from when to when, and then we'll go down, and it's the same way with Gulf War. We'll concede 1117, 1119 exposure, which is Gulf War, but I'm not sure why you guys are not seeing it. I don't know. I've never knew that it was over there where you guys could actually see it.
Right, I know they had the screening, and they were
Mhm.
able to see that on the
Yes.
in their record for that.
Mhm. Correct, FF, because they would schedule an appointment and you would go to the screening, and after the screening, they will print you out a letter, which I still have my letter. I have to look for it so I can show you guys. But the letter would tell you like if you are eligible
The
for the
exposure,
Terra, and what made you eligible for the Terra, and all the different things that apply to the Terra. It was a lengthy letter.
I think that
Was-
wasn't that with VHA. That couldn't have been with VBA, because I
yeah, it
remember
was with the VHA.
yeah, it was with VHA. That's not something that we would,
Okay.
do. Yeah, that's VHA side. Cause yeah, and you're right. In your VAMC records, we would see that like they would have one for like Agent Orange
Mhm.
registry,
Mhm.
or Gulf War registry. So
Yeah.
that's more VHA side, and
Okay.
as opposed to VBA side.
Okay.
Because
And the
we'll
reason I'm
update it
asking is
depending
because
on what
now
happens.
service members that are just getting out, like I had somebody reach out to me the other day asking for their Terra exposure letter. Like, how do they get one? And it's no longer e-benefits is officially closed down. So a lot of information we used to get from e-benefits, but now it's not available to the recently separated veterans.
So with that, I remember when I got out. So you would go to your local VAMC, and
Mhm.
then they usually do an intake, and then you would ask them to talk to a Gulf War specialist, and
Okay.
they will go. They will schedule you an an appointment to go over those things, and then they would fill out the documentation for the veteran, and then they go on this list of veterans that have been to Gulf War or Republic of Vietnam.
Mhm.
We don't ever see the list, but we do see the letter within the VAMC records, and then they can go get that printed out at their release of information office,
Mhm.
or see it on My Blue Button, which is My Healthy Vet,
Gotcha.
and then they could print that out for their own keeping.
Well, thank you for that. I hope you guys got that when it comes to Tara and the PACT Act and presumptives, how they all lined up, because I know a lot of veterans get it confused. They get it all mixed up, especially when it comes to the PACT Act. So a question that I usually get asked is, I do not require proof for the specific offense when it comes to the PACT Act, but yet I'm still getting denied.
Because PACT Act is different than Gulf War.
Yes.
That's totally different
Mhm.
arenas. So the presumptive is, we have a list that is presumed a presumptive to Gulf War. We have a list that's presumed, we've conceded is presumed to AO. Now, with Gulf War, even though it's a presumption, we still have to, certain conditions, we still, like IBS and GERD, we have to ask for what we call a MUCME exam.
Okay.
If you are diagnosed with like sinusitis and rhinitis, we don't need a medical opinion for that. If you have Gulf War exposure, if you have a diagnosis of that, we go ahead and hook that up. Now, sometimes when it comes to like cardiovascular signs and symptoms and things of that nature, that's a little tricky, because sometimes we have to go and because sometimes those they can have an underlying condition, they can have another etiology other than Gulf War. So we have to, it's certain conditions that we have to ask, is it a MUCME? And then we have like 4 different categories that it will fall under, and then the examiner will tell us if it is a not undiagnosable condition with the unknown etiology. So then we will be able to service connect that based on the presumption that it occurred from Southwest Asia, Gulf War.
Awesome. Got it. Anything to add, FF? Or are we moving right on along?
No, we're moving right along with the MUCME. They just have to remember it can't be due to anything else.
Gotcha.
Yes, it can't be. Yeah, it can't have a. If they give us, I think that's number 4.
Okay.
On the list. Yeah, if it has another etiology to it, we can't apply the MUCME, the Gulf War presumptive to that. And that's under, is that 3.317? I think, yes, 38 CFR 3.317. You guys can look that up.
All right. Element 3, the medical nexus. Whew. The key concept is the medical link and the connection. Element 1 is the diagnosis. Element 2 is the service event. And then 3 is the medical nexus. The evidentiary standard is that the doctor must state it is at least as likely as not, 50% probability or greater, that the disability was caused or aggravated by the service. The opinion must include a medical rationale, the how and why, based on the evidence. Evidence examples are a formal nexus letter from a doctor or the result of a VA compensation examination known as the CMP.
That's just what it is. I can't even expand on that. I mean, that's what I can say. Okay, so I understand everyone wants to get service connected, and you go out and ask for someone else to do a nexus letter for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're missing element 1 and 2, the nexus letter that you paid for is, we'll take it and we'll take it into consideration, but you still don't have you don't meet the first 2 elements. So it's just, we'll just put it on the evidence like we considered it. However, we did not find any link to service. The examiner will say, we did not find any, we reviewed your records. we did not find in the STRs that this condition has ever been treated, diagnosed, or occurred. Therefore, a nexus cannot be made. That's what I can say on that. You got anything, Erica?
No.
Yeah, because I mean,
I'm going to say this. If you are doing a BDD claim, you do not need a nexus letter. Let's say it again. If you are doing a BDD claim, you do not need a nexus letter. Do not run around looking for 5, 6, 7 different providers to write you all these different letters, because you are still in service and what you have is still service connected. So there is no need to schedule a consultation with a VSO. There is no need to pay a claim shark to help you file a claim. And there is no need for you to pay for a nexus letter.
and with BDDs, regardless if you never claimed something before, you never been treated. If you do a BDD claim and your examination was conducted while you're on active duty, that diagnosis is considered to have been diagnosed while on active duty. BDDs is probably one of the most easiest claims to get service connected for. Now, you can claim a condition, but if you go to that exam and the examiner says you have no diagnosis, we have no control over that.
Yes.
Because they didn't find any evidence to show that you have a diagnosable. You may have symptomology, but you may not have the actual diagnosis.
Anything FF about BDD?
No, and they definitely write everything you all say. They'll say complaint of left toe, complaint of left elbow, but no diagnosis.
Correct.
The diagnosis is the foundation. The diagnosis is the foundation. This is what we've been trying to just drill in the veteran's head. The diagnosis, the connection, the nexus without a letter. There, just keep repeating it so you guys can understand. All right, let's keep going with the standards for the examination. So the low threshold for examination, the threshold for the VA to provide the CMP examination is relatively low. The claim will be sent for an exam if the evidence indicates that the claim condition may be associated with the veteran's service, but does not provide sufficient medical evidence for the VA to award a claim. So the Veterans Claim Assistance Act requirements is under the VCAA, the VA is obligated to assist veterans in obtaining evidence for their claims, including scheduling a CMP exam if the initial evidence meet the necessary criteria. When an examination may not be needed, there's no insufficient medical evidence, or there's sufficient medical evidence already on record. If the VA has already has sufficient medical evidence to make a decision without an additional examination, they may not schedule one. The claim clearly not supported. If the claim does not meet the criteria for establishing a service connection, an examination may not be warranted. For example, if there's no indication of a current disability or medical evidence linking the condition to the service.
What I would just speak to on this is the role of the veteran during this process here. And that would be the attendance if you have an exam. And do everything in your power to try to attend that exam. If you know that you're going to miss the exam, what you need to do is call and try to get it rescheduled, because if you miss it, you don't call, the claim will go to the rating board and get denied based on a no-show. Okay. So your cooperation during this process, because like Hervet said, the threshold for an examination is low. We can have an event where, like I spoke earlier, you were loading something on a truck and you tweaked your back. You had one report of that. Well, that's an in-service event. The medical records could say something like muscle spasms. That is enough for us to, if you seen your private, we have some private treatment records saying you now have degenerative joint disease, lumbar degenerative joint disease. That is enough for us to send an exam and a medical opinion, trying to link your current diagnosis to the in-service event and the diagnosis we had in service. That's where the role of the veteran comes in, and the cooperation of the veteran attending the examination, so that the rating board can get the necessary information that they need to decide your claim, i.e. your signs and symptoms, so that we could be able to provide the best rating for you should that happen. Supporting evidence also is another part for this standard of standards for examination requests. Typically, we try to encourage the veteran to provide any additional medical records, any statements, any type of evidence that's going to support the nexus for a service connection. That's where your buddy letters come into play. If you're being treated for these conditions outside of the VA. Some people never have went to the VA, but they have an outside provider. I don't care if you only seen this doctor one time, that is evidence to support a service connection. So please take your time, gather the documentation necessary to upload it. Now, I would say if you did not, at the time that you submitted your claim, take that medical information, because sometimes I know a lot of facilities may not give you the medical records in a timely manner. If you get it before the exam, take it with you. Let the examiner review it. And then what you should do is upload that medical documentation to your file so that it's available for the rater to be able to take that information in consideration when that exam come back and or medical opinion comes back for you.
Awesome. I see a lot of veterans that they get upset when they submit a claim and it just gets deleted, right? I submitted a claim and all of a sudden it disappeared. And usually my first question is, well, did you have a diagnosis? Is there
What
any
they
kind
mean disappeared? What do you
What that
mean?
mean disappeared? I
of
don't.
meaning that they filed it, they sent it in, and then all of a sudden it gets deleted.
The claim?
The claim gets deleted. Yes.
I've
I
never
don't know
heard
what that means.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
As a rater, because a lot of people are uploading it through the portal.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there's because sometimes we do have late flowing evidence. So sometimes there is a glitch in the system sometimes where
Mhm.
the veteran might have submitted it yesterday, but we didn't get it until today. But it will show yesterday's date. But that's what we get called late flowing evidence. Now, has there been claims filed in the past that was never adjudicated?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
that has happened. That has extreme, and that is not on the veteran. Well, a little bit is the veteran's responsibility because if you filed a claim 3 years ago and you never heard anything from us, you should call. You should definitely call so that you can get a file, get somebody to look at that and put it oh wow, we did not adjudicate this claim, because unfortunately sometimes yes, it may fell through the crack. I don't know. But yes, it has happened where a veteran has submitted a initial claim and it was never adjudicated.
Yeah. And let's talk about a little bit of claims clearly not supported, because I think sometimes veteran feels like they have all this information, and I think because they feel like their medical records is so thick that they have a lot of information, but the information has to pertain to the current disability. I think that's where the disconnect is. Just because your medical records is stacking and you're filing for something, that does not mean that you currently have that type of medical evidence for that disability. You have to check. And this is why we talk about going through your medical records like a fine-tooth comb. Go through it page by page. Set a timer of 5 minutes. Take some time and go through your records because you guys miss so much information. You miss stuff. And you are definitely dependent on the raters to go find all this information when I think you should be helping yourself a little bit. So can we talk about how helpful it is when veterans go pick out stuff for raters and they don't have to dig through the muddy pile?
Beautiful.
I love it, but unfortunately that's not that doesn't always occur. Sometimes you have some that give us everything that we need and it's so easy. But let me say this. Every condition that you get diagnosed with in life does not always is not associated with service.
Yes, yes.
So I see all these different claims come in, and then you go look in the service treatment records, and they never have ever been treated for that. Now, depending on what it is, and we have conceded terror, we, by law, under duty to assist, we have to send it for an exam. Now, common sense in my head, I'm like, oh, this is going to probably come back negative, but we have to do it. We have to do that by law. But if you was in service in 1970 and you coming back 50, 60 years later, and you're telling me your hearing is due to your military service, I'm like, by law, we have to ask for a hearing loss exam through the military occupational specialty. But here's when I use logic and I say, okay, how I'm looking at age and I'm looking at how long you've been out. Sometimes the examiner will, because if the veteran didn't have an audiogram entering service and they didn't have an audiogram leaving service, sometimes the examiner falls in favor of the veteran because they have no baseline to disagree with the veteran. But in my mind, if you wait, if it, sometimes the examiner say no, it's just age related, or it's a post service, like if you got out of service and you were a pilot for after, or you drove a dump truck, or you worked in construction, sometimes they'll say it is not due to military, nor your military, no, it is due to post service. So
I'll send it back and I'll say, what's the baseline?
Yeah, but we can do that. But that's why I said the thing where if you were in service in the 70s and you're coming back in 2026 and you're saying that this, I will send it back and be like, well, what's the baseline? Because you're telling me in a 50-year span, this is still related to service, not to deny, just for clarification. Because if was in the service when I was 19, 20, and now I'm 70, like where is the base? Like FFS said, where is the baseline? Anything, FF?
No.
All right, let's go to the next slide, and then we're going to get into, I think, Q&A. Yep, let's get some questions going, and I see some questions already. So let's right up here to the top. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Good day. Oh, wow. Hey, Miss Donna. This is good. Thank you. Thank you, teaching. Okay. Any information on what will happen with the forever chemical bases? And if you are on, one second, if you are on TikTok and you're posting questions, you need to come over to YouTube to put your questions in the chat because I'm not able to monitor both live streams at the same time. Okay? Go ahead, Effa.
Oh, I was saying I don't know with that one. The forever
So
chemistry.
there is that one island. It was called the Atolla something. I can't remember, but that was the island where when after I think Vietnam or something like that, where they dumped a
What?
bunch of
Oh, Johnson Atoll.
yeah, that one. You know where they dumped all those the Agent Orange and the chemicals and all
Oh,
that. They have already established that. They've established the Camp Lejeune, but the chemicals that would be considered probably a under a terror. But what I would say, just like Vietnam and the Gulf War, it took years for them to recognize any service connected disability is related to AO. A lot of those veterans came back and never was service connected. They went to the VA. They were treated so bad that they never went back. Many years later, oh, you see these veterans who attended, they were went to Vietnam, coming up with all these same type of cancers, all these same type of disabilities, and they finally linked it. So I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of these things that these chemical bases and stuff like that, if you worked as a, because some people did work with like nuclear waste, some people did work in where they had to burn documents that was in a asbestos type situation, and or they was in like a little area where all those chemicals coming off of that stuff that they were burning affected their breathing, they affected this and affected that. So I would just probably put in your claim and you explain it, do your lay statement, and let the wheels start going.
Okay. All right. Hey, MCM. Okay. Somebody said they're live streaming my live stream. Okay. After diagnosis and ratings given, do you have to continue going to the VA? Can you switch to a civilian?
yes, you can go wherever you want to
If
go.
you want.
You don't
As long
even
as you
have to go to the
continue,
VA.
yeah, as long as you continue receiving care, then that's
Yeah. Take care of you.
yeah. Nobody can tell you where you should go, or and if someone tells you like, no, you should stay going to the VA, you are your own person. You can decide where you want to have your treatment.
Because some people don't trust the VA. You go what makes you feel good and protect your peace.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. Next question. Is what you call Gulf War include Desert Storm, Desert Shield?
Yes.
All right, we have reached all our questions tonight, and we are less than an hour. You guys don't have any more questions? Is there anything else that you guys want to share before we end this live? And we are about to be under an hour.
Look at that.
And
Y'all must be good then.
we are
We
good.
did.
We hope that they will be submitting all the information.
Yeah, they did good. Before you guys do your claims, remember you can do your intent to file. If you don't have time to log in online, you can call and they can do your intent to file over the phone. That's good for a year. It'll hold your place for your completed claim, not for all of the random claims. And that's all I got. You have anything else, Natural?
I would say I'm just gonna touch on supplemental claims again. Just guys, be mindful when you do a supplemental. I'm gonna say this again. Read your narrative and look at why it was denied, and look at which theory of entitlement that we use to try to service connect you.
Yes.
That means if we did it on a direct basis, secondary basis, Gulf War, Pact, terror, all look at that, right? And then begin to strategize another way. Don't come back and file a supplemental and send the same thing you used the first time, because what's going to happen is that claim will come in today. The VSR will see you did not send anything new and relevant, and they will send it to the rating board, and then you will get another denial.
Mhm.
Unless the rater finds something that can help you go back to an examination. Supplemental claims, if you were not seen in service for whatever you're trying to claim, I ain't gonna say don't do a supplemental claim, but do a different strategy to try to get that disability that you feel is related to something that you are already diagnosed with. I see every day these same claims. Sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. Sleep apnea secondary to my knee. Sleep apnea secondary to my ankle. Sleep apnea secondary to my pinky toe.
Cannot.
Sleep apnea secondary to this, that. The amount of exams and denials that are happening for this is astronomical, and the claims keep coming. So if you look at it and you say, okay, this didn't work, you just send in all these lay statements that your friends are saying, well, this person, I heard them snoring in service. I heard this, I heard that. Guys, that is good. We love that. But what you can't, how is your, I get chronic pain. I get it. You may be in pain. Okay, I get it. But how can pes planus cause sleep apnea? I'm being so serious right now. I get that it can knock off your gait. I get that you can be in pain. But realistically, like, I'm gonna give y'all an example. I'm gonna give y'all of something what not to do. A person Googled sleep apnea secondary to what for VA claim. AI told them on a Google website, they screenshotted that and sent it to us.
What?
They said that was their nexus. That was their basis of claiming a second, and the stuff that Google told them they were not even service connected for.
Natural stuff.
So wait, how you found out the screenshot was the Google Bing at the top?
It
They
said
sent it.
it said Bing at the top, and it said
Yeah.
what they had typed in, and then AI spit out whatever, the AI overview or whatever, and it spit it out, and this person snipped it and uploaded it as their evidence to support.
But right, they didn't pay for it.
They didn't, but here's the thing. If you're trying to secondary something, make sure you're service connected for that.
Y'all taking me through there.
What to say? Explain what an ACE exam is.
Explain what an ACE exam is. I was granted service connection for pelvic floor injury. The residuals of that condition that I filed have all been sent direct exam
For
a direct
so
exam. Okay.
ACE exam is just basically a records review. That's basically what an ACE exam is. We send evidence to the examiner, and the examiner will review the medical evidence in its entirety, right? And if the examiner has some questions, they will call you. If they don't have any questions, they will not call you, i.e. why Natural doesn't like ACE exams.
Aww.
But it happens every day.
But
I don't like
ACE exams,
I
and
do.
Natural does not like ACE.
I do not, because sometimes I feel like it does a disservice to the veteran. Sometimes I do. Because here's the thing: you don't get to explain to the examiner how it's affecting you. So we're sending the evidence that's in your file, true. But sometimes when the veteran goes to the exams, they can convey stuff that medical documentation cannot. Sometimes, I just don't like them. I'm sorry. And pelvic floor injury, that's typically probably at 0%.
Mhm.
Unless you got some type of residuals like FSAT, but that's a 0%. You'll
Yeah.
just get an SMC for that. But typically, that unless you have some type of residuals from like a muscle injury from that, that's maybe like causing you pain or something like that, you may get a 10%. But
All right. The next question is, how do I handle a primary care provider prescribing medications without an official diagnosis on file? For example, IBS or rhinitis medications.
so the examiner, I mean
Now, the
your
primary care
PC,
physician gives them medicine, but there's still no official diagnosis on file. Ask for
then
it.
what? Yeah, ask for it. Like, I'll be like, well, why are you giving me this medicine if I don't
I
have a
don't have
diagnosis?
it. Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
why am I taking medication for something that you're not? Now, what I would do if I would go, if I go to my PCP and she gave me some medication like for IBS or whatever the other condition you said, if I went and looked at my records for that day and they didn't give me official diagnosis, guess what? I'm emailing like, hey, per our last visit, you
Mhm.
prescribed me medications for IBS and headaches.
Yep.
Am I going to be currently treated for this? Is this my current diagnosis? Is this why I'm taking the medication? You guys have to be the ones that
Yep.
ensure that these PCPs, these examiners are doing right by you.
Yes.
Don't leave it to the VBA or your claims processor or your claims agent or your VSO to do the work for you. You have to be proactive in your claim process also.
Send a
Correct.
message while we're on this live. Send a message right now.
My
Yeah.
health vet, I tell y'all all the time, my service record, the VA has, doesn't match the time I actually served. So my disability claim keeps getting denied. I served 12 years, but VA only have my records showing basic and AIT training.
Well,
National
some of that
Guard
reserve
or
was, yeah, reserve, National Guard, times like that, because the technically, if it was reserve or National Guard, AIT is
yeah.
in basic is not counted as active duty. It's counted for active duty for training, but that's for everybody. Actually, it ain't just National Guard Reserve. If
Mhm.
you go to basic and AIT and you go to a reserve unit, the only way that your basic and AIT can be counted as active duty is if you had an in-service event. Like if you were running, you hurt your knee, you went to the doctor, you now have a diagnosis, you had a profile, you come claim it, we see that, we send you for, and you have current care, and we'll send for a medical opinion and an exam. If the medical opinion comes back positive, then we will turn that period of service, basic and AIT, into active duty so that we can grant. Now, if you have reserve and a National Guard, they are supposed to develop for those service treatment records while you were on reserve, National Guard, whatever duty. And if they have not, then you should speak up and say something, because
Please. It could take them
if
12 years to do it.
yeah, if they did not, they should have. If the VA requested, because typically the VA will request it, and if they will send you a letter saying, "Hey, we have requested it, but it's your responsibility to send it to us. Although we requested it, if you have it, send it to us," because sometimes veterans can get records faster than people uploading it. I don't know why, but sometimes that can happen. And then if they don't find it, they have to send you what we call a final notification letter saying, "Hey, our search for your records from this time frame to this time frame has been futile. We are unable to find your reserve National Guard records, blah blah blah."
And we send you all a letter each time to tell
Yeah.
you that we didn't get it.
Yep. All right. What should I do if you believe your PTSD CMP didn't go as expected? The guy in front of me pissed her off when I got some of his grief. Oh wow. Well, if it don't go well, call the VA. Tell them it didn't go well. Request another one. If you're unhappy with it, don't accept it. Don't complain.
Now,
You allow.
sometimes veterans do themselves a disservice because even though that examiner may be mad or upset or whatever,
Yeah.
I've had where I got a exam back and then I see a 0820 in there and the veteran call and says, "Hey, I went to this exam. They only seen me for this month and they were rude, they were disrespectful, blah blah blah. But I want another exam. The exam that I have is favorable, right? So you call and you say, "Hey, this is blah 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 from blah blah blah. We see that you do not want you would like a new exam. Are you
Mhm.
sure this is what you want to do? Because the exam, may have a favorable outcome. We can't say, well, the exam is favorable. We have to say it you can have a fair. If they say no, I want to attend another exam because I think that, whatever, we have to do it regardless. But if you feel like that PTSD exam didn't go well, you can call and request a new examination citing whatever, happened during that and why you believe you need another exam.
All right. Hope that's stuck.
Now
I
I
found
will call the veteran.
I would call the vet. Yep. I finally got through. Here it goes. Good evening, first of all. Good evening, 355 mile guy. Question. File at 4138 now for 100 mile plus DBQ now, or wait till it gets flagged by the BI.
Wait,
No, I
what?
mean it's fine.
Did they file a private DBQ? I mean, I'm not getting it.
No.
That's just a statement, right?
Yeah,
No.
is that just a statement or are they
Here's the thing, guys. Just
It's a
because
statement.
you are doing a DBQ that's 100 miles out of the way does not automatically say that it's disingenuous.
Right. Like it's okay to do a private DBQ that's 100 miles away. Okay. If the information that is being submitted is valid and is honest, it's okay.
and it
It's
checks the
fine.
block, the NPI numbers, all that. Now, where I would have a question is if you live in Louisiana and you got a DBQ from New York, yeah, I'm probably gonna. I ain't gonna say it's disingenuous, but I'm gonna know like either did you fly there, did you have, there's gonna be questions when it's stuff like that. If it's certain exams, DBQs cannot be done by telehealth. Just FYI. So that's when you would run into some problem. Some people drive 100 miles. Some people drive 120 miles. Some people drive 150. If it's feasible, guys, we don't look to discredit every private DBQ that come. Although a lot of them be far-fetched, I'm not gonna lie, but we don't look to discredit all of them like, oh, this is fake, oh, this is a fraud. We don't look for that. We look for the authenticity of the DBQ because there is a manual reference for that. You guys can Google it and look it up. That if that DBQ meets the criteria that a VA examination has, and we don't find anything wrong with it, then it's an acceptable DBQ.
We're
No
supposed to take it
insufficient.
at face value.
Yes.
We aren't supposed to scrutinize it. So if your DBQ is fine, then don't worry. Now, if you're doing something like, I don't know, that's just weird, and maybe if that's in the back of your mind, I don't know, maybe that's another thing for you to worry about. I don't know. But if your DBQ is good on its face and it's honest and sufficient, then don't worry about it. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I sent a statement of support of claim for my egg exam just in case. I was given 10%. Awesome.
Okay, awesome.
Great job. Thank you, ladies. Okay. What can a VSO share or give me a copy from VBMS? Some say they can't share or are very evasive about the content.
Can't they
I'm
give
not.
15 pages?
I
Or they
think they
can't?
can give up to 15 pages, but I'm not a VSO, so I can't tell you. But I do know that you can get up to 15 pages. Now,
And I don't think
they
they can give C and peak because we may not be finished with the
finish with it. Yeah.
results.
They can share that, hey, you have the exam back. They can see medical opinions. Now, sometimes the VSOs drive me crazy because they will tell the veteran, hey, that claim is not going to get service connected. It's going to get denied. And then we get all this stuff sent in before we ever even adjudicated the claim. Like the veteran's mad. Like, why y'all deny? You know, all this stuff. They're sending in a 0995 already. And we have not even adjudicated the claim because the VSO went ahead and told the veteran. And so, like,
You're like, why they
like
cancel it?
say,
You're like, what?
yeah, like it's I get
Yeah,
it, but you know.
just it. Yeah.
Just,
Looks like Rayla is hanging out
I
in the
don't know.
back,
And of course, I guess.
listening in the background. Hey, Rayla, how are you? And that is the end of our Q&A
Hey.
for tonight. Yes. Oh, wait. Somebody just said something. If you're at step 3 waiting on the exam, is it too late to upload additional evidence, i.e. buddy letters? No.
Step 3 is gathering evidence. So
Yeah.
yes, go ahead and upload
Buddy
all
letters.
of your.
Yeah.
Step 5 is when you
It's
set the
getting
rating board by then.
Yeah. Yes, denial basis in my records is copy and paste from a VA study guide for 100 to 0 reduction. Makes my head hurt. Wow. She says, Spencer go out. She going off the line for tonight. Anyway, guys. So it comes down to what we talked about earlier. Every VA disability claims come down to 3 things: a current diagnosis, an in-service event, a medical nexus connecting the two. Okay. If one of those elements are missing, the VA is going to deny your claim. But when veterans understand these elements, they can build a much stronger claims. You have heard FF and Natural tell you tonight everything that you need. So do what you're supposed to do. Go back over this live, write some notes down, make sure you have your diagnosis, your in-service event, your medical nexus, connecting the 2 things, which will come together to have your 1, 2, 3 elements that you need. Submit your claim. Don't worry about it. Don't go checking 50 million times a day because it's not going to move that fast. Because as you can tell, veterans file claims every day, and the queue is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your likes, your shares. Thank you for the Raider family for sending your support over here to us. Thank you for everybody on TikTok who comes over to join us weekly. We will be back here on Friday night. Next week, we are going to talk about veterans in employment and the accommodations that veterans can have. And we're going to have someone who is very efficient in accommodations, who's been working with EEOC. So we will have them here live and in color with our raiders to talk about accommodations, aid and attendance, and all the different things that we veterans need to know. So I will see you guys on Friday night. Our next live is on Friday. We cut up on Friday nights at 9 p.m. So I will see you guys on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Thank you for
Hey,
tuning in.
Corvette, can I say one thing before we leave? So guys, let me go back to something about the elements. A veteran is competent to tell their symptomology. They're not competent to diagnose themselves. So if we look in the SCRs and we find that you had a complaint of back pain, but you didn't have a diagnosis, that is still enough to warrant an exam and medical, because you had symptomology. You didn't have a diagnosis, but you had symptomology. So that is just a little caveat that I wanted to throw in there before we got off.
Thank you for that, guys. We'll see you guys on Friday night. Be kind to each other in these YouTube streets, because you know y'all can get mean. Anyway, be kind. Share the information with another veteran. Send them over so they can get the information that they need. Have an amazing night, and we will see you guys on Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
You're not alone, you got a voice. Stand strong, stay informed.